Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm the High Pop Professor. And today, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about prioritization and how I choose which pieces, which cards I'm going to go after next, how I help myself make that tough decision when maybe two things, three things come up all at once, and maybe I've got to make a choice. Which one or ones do I go for? Which ones do I choose to let go? And how do I navigate those waters? And of course, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. So this is more of a philosophical insight into sort of how I operate. But again, that's the kind of stuff I love to think about on this kind of channel and to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about a couple of very recent auctions and listings that came available all at once, which for me and the kinds of cards I like to target, that doesn't happen very often. The kind of cards that I like to target, oftentimes, they may only be listed maybe once, twice a year, every other year sometimes. And so when some rare stuff comes up, I sit up and take note, and I have to really carefully consider and think about where my priorities are and really navigate those waters about how I want to proceed. Do I let this go? Do I go after it? How do I go after it? So that's what I'd like to discuss and talk about, because so far this year, 2025, in January and February, there have been it's kind of been amazing. It's been a cascade. I put out a goals video toward the end of January, and I had a bunch of hobby goals that weren't related to pickups at all, and I can go over those later. But when it comes to the actual pickups and the cards that I'm targeting, I would like to discuss, because there were a couple of them that I had listed and specifically mentioned by name and set that I was wanting to go for, and I didn't go for them. It wasn't that I bid and didn't win. I just didn't bid on them. And you're thinking like, what? Is he, Hi Pop, you okay over there? And yeah, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. I specifically mentioned in that goals video, there were a couple cards. I mentioned Topps Chrome Black Refractors from '02 and '03 for Greg Maddux. I'm still missing both of those. I mentioned specifically Donruss Signature Century Marks for Maddux for 97 and 98. Both of those, actually all four of those, have been available this year. And right now I have 0 of them in my collection. So what's going on? Why? What's the reason? I made a whole video about this. Well, what have I been doing exactly? Well, again, it's prioritization. And aside from those, there's another one that that I think that should be discussed, should be mentioned, because it's kind of crazy. It's kind of insane how this card came available. There's a Donruss Crusade Red that's for sale for and that card should be probably what, $3,000, something like that. It's for sale for under $700, and I have chosen not to buy it. And so why? We're going to talk about this. And so I want to take them sort of step by step, piece by piece. And then what I like to do is, after I talk about why I didn't go after them, I want to turn the camera around and show you the other part of why I didn't go after them, because it turns out my resources were being allocated elsewhere. So we'll talk about that. But again, it's sort of a two-tiered thing. I need to have the resources and decide to prioritize that exact pickup when I want to do that. And if it doesn't make sense, or there's something about it that turns me off of that exact piece, that's where we're heading with this. So in the case of the '02, '03 Black Refractors, right now, there's an '03 Black Refractor listed. It's a buy it now, but it's an ungraded card, and the vertical centering is pretty far off. Now, the centering on a lot of these Topps Chrome refractors is so at best. You're not going to get dead centered every time. Fine. But if the price reflected that centering, centering being off, that would be one thing. But the '03 Black Refractor is numbered to 170. And so it's not super limited. And I could probably live with that off-centered, vertical off-centeredness, except that the price is just a little high for what it is. And so, the seller's being a little aggressive. They want to command that price for it. That's their asking price, and that's their right. They can put it however high they want. It's a seller I'm familiar with. I have seen them, and they do lots of listings for refractors. And I've even made a purchase from them before, but they list their prices pretty high. I think they know that their prices are pretty high. And this is a seller that when I made my purchase, I actually just reached out and sent an eBay message saying, hey, look, would you be willing to consider a lower amount for this card or a card? And so that was the one that I had purchased from them before. And they did. They agreed to come down to a more reasonable amount. And so, that the value, the price for the condition and the scarcity, the numbering, those numbers just for me didn't quite feel right. Just because I have a card that I am targeting doesn't mean that I'm gonna, overpay for it. And I guess that's kind of where it comes down to. If the centering's off, I can abide by that, but I would like the price to reflect accurately that, okay, this is clearly not a 10, probably not a 9, and which is okay. I don't buy the grade. I want a card that I'm going to be happy with, and it's not going to annoy me looking at it every time. Because if something about the card is going to annoy me every time I look at it, I might as well pass it up and just wait for one that won't annoy me every time I look at it. So that's kind of where I'm at regarding that. So that was the 03 black refractor. The 02 black refractor. Now that one's a little more intense. I've never seen that card come up for sale. Just never. Since I've been back in the hobby. It's numbered out of 50. And so really rare. And this was an ungraded copy, which is fine. I don't really care if it's graded, ungraded. And when I saw this come available for an auction, obviously I followed it right away. And it was so funny. About a day and a half before the auction ended, I got a text message from this guy. And so we got Dylan saying like, hey, you should know about this. You mentioned that was the card you wanted. You said you wanted. And so it's like, yes, thank you, Dylan. I'm on it. Got the safe search for it. But yes, thank you. And I appreciate that. That's awesome. Watching out for each other. That's great. And so, yeah, I'm watching this thing and watching the price climb higher and higher as the days, tick down toward the ending of the auction. And what was really funny about this, well, two things. Number one, the auction ended right when I'm in the middle of teaching class. So I couldn't even be there to like snipe it if I wanted to because I'm in the middle of delivering a lesson. So I can't sorry, class, hold on, I'll be right back. Well, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But the second thing, and really the more important of the two things, because I could put a max blanket bid in, that's fine. But the more important issue is that I wasn't all that happy with the condition of the card. I said before, I like chromium cards often because they have body armor for the edges and the corners. And it turns out, I do want my cards to be centered well, but for me, the corners are the big thing. I know Dylan's got his centering, right? And I'm finding myself more getting centering is becoming more important to me than it has been in the past, which is fine. We all evolve and change as hobbyists. But for me, corners have always been the most important. I want a nice sharp card. And that's part of why I think I gravitate towards chromium cards, refractor cards, because the corners are generally so nice, at least from the front. And yeah, there's a touch in the back corner that you can't see from the front. That's not going to bother me. That won't stop me. But the condition of this one seemed just a little bit dubious. There was a fairly noticeable scratch on like the upper left corner that you could see through the one touch. And then one of the pictures had the top layer of the one touch removed, and you could still see that there. And so I think that was a scratch on the card. It looked like it was a moderately deep scratch. Not large in length, but it was definitely noticeable with the black background. It showed up as a sort of a stark white. And I don't think it was a hair or debris. I think it was a scratch. That second one, picture on the listing that had the case removed, there was another vertical scratch going down the card. There was a weird surface blemish or something also in the middle right lower part of the card. And yeah, so it was just, and then on the upper right, there was a weird white dot, looked like a pock mark or something like that. And again, it wasn't just debris. You could tell it was something it was an issue. It was a surface issue, another one. And then on the back, two of the corners, one of them had a big old touch of white. The other one had a more significant touch of white that went into an edge, and it was a legit corner ding. And And so this thing is just kind of, I mean, it's centered nicely, but if I'm looking at that card, I don't want to only see the scratch in the corner. I don't want to only see that white pockmark in the other corner and then turn it over and see all this, beat up on the back. So while I don't care about the slab, I don't care about the number on them, I care about a card that looks great in my collection. I care about having a card I can be proud of. And I just felt that even though there's only 50, even though they don't come up for sale very often, I just felt like I wasn't going to be willing to spend the kind of money that this ended up going for on a card that is going to bother me condition-wise. So I let it pass by. A similar thing happened. There was a 97 and 98 Donruss Signature Century Marks came available on Facebook of Greg Maddux. And again, these are two cards I specifically targeted, specifically named it in my video like a month and a half ago. And almost the exact same thing. The price was reasonable that he was asking for them, but I could have snapped it up. I could have messaged him right away, but I hesitated, and I did it deliberately because of, again, issues with the corners. These are dark bordered cards. These are dark, deep blue cards on the front that, a little touch of white shows so easily on the corners. And really, I'm looking for something like a PSA 8 Auto 10 would be just about great, or maybe even a 9. And I'm the kind of person that I would absolutely be willing to pay up for like a PSA 9 of a card like that. But I also want the auto to look good. So, we're talking like Auto 10, Auto 9, one of those. And so, yeah, something like that in the 8 to 10 range. But not actually a PSA 10. I'm not paying that tax. It's absurd. But yeah, at the end of the day, these are cards that just kind of probably would have fallen in the 6 to 7 territory. And it would have bothered me, whether it was in a slab or not. Even in a Mag Pro, you can still see damage to cards. Not like, So I let them pass by. And it was fun too, because I realized too later in the day, I talked to Bill, the Hall of Fame collector, and he picked them up. And so I know he was looking for them too, which is actually, I'm really happy for him because now that he has them, the next time he sees them, he'll keep me in mind because, he's very good at helping people find their cards they want, as I've learned from last year. So yeah, I decided not to go for those. And there's one more card that I think is just incredible that has to be mentioned right now, currently on eBay. There is a Donruss Crusade Red, Greg Maddux, that is listed. And there, this is a card that probably should be about, $3,000, maybe, like in a PSA 9, something like that. Like, that's a reasonable price for that. And this one's listed for like under 1,000, like under 800. What's going on? And it turns out this card has been beat up beyond belief. I mean, we're talking creases all over the place. And it's kind of hilarious and kind of amazing that this card, I don't know what happens to a card. It looked like it went through the laundry. Like, I don't even know. But it is an authentic, legitimate copy. It's numbered out of 25. He has really good pictures on the listing showing just how damaged this thing is. I would almost wonder you send it to PSA and maybe it comes back a 1 or maybe authentic, which would be hilarious. But, I threw an offer in there because he had it listed for whatever it was, 700, 800 or best offer. I threw in just a low ball, like 150, just to see if he would, if I could own a card like that in my collection, it would be worth the novelty, I think, of saying I have a Crusade Red. I've got one of the 25. And yeah, even if it's crazy beat up, it's so beat up. It's so far beyond just some damage that it would be hilarious to have that. So anyway, but no. He declined. It was auto declined, the offer, and so whatever. But it is fascinating that that's out there because we think of low grade, we think of low grade vintage or low grade pre-war. We don't think of low grade modern. Like, that's not a thing. Okay. If a card gets an 8 and it's ultra modern, it's like a death sentence. Okay, you just crack it out at that point. So considering these really, really low grade super rare cards is kind of a weird anomaly. So if I didn't do that, what did I do? Because I said there was 2 parts to this. There's the condition that I don't think I could live with happily in my collection, but then again, it's about resource allocation. So it's about prioritization. What did I do? Let's go ahead and turn the camera around and we'll take a look at a couple cards that are not going to be bothering me because of their condition. Okay, so sometime in January, there was someone who had posted on Facebook in a Barry Bonds collectors group, which I'm a member of. And, I get to know people in that group a little bit just because of my dad. He knows a lot of these guys are people that buy cards from him as he's moving things along. And he knows them, and he knows them very well, knows how they collect, what they like. And so a lot of these guys he knows. And one of the more prominent names in this Barry Bonds group, this guy named Sutton posted saying that he had a bunch of Barry Bonds autographs. He was looking to move along and to message him with requests. And this was after I'd been considering, and I named some of these Donruss signature Millennium marks as potential targets for me. And like I mentioned before, I'm a little bit picky about the condition. I don't need 10s. Heck, I don't even want 10s. But I want them to be in really great shape. They have dark borders, dark green borders. They're really tough to find. He sent me pictures of both his 97 and his 98 that he had. And we were able to put together a deal. And it's so funny, though, because, he ended up purchasing a whole bunch of my dad's Bonds certified autographs. And so at first I wasn't sure, am I repurchasing the same cards that were my dad's collection? I don't think that's the case. But I was able to get from him a beautiful 97 Donruss signature Millennium marks, Barry Bonds, playing days, on card, auto. And the 98, which I think is also kind of amazing too, because these autographs look very different. Like his mid-90s, 94 through 97 autograph looks quite significantly different than his 98 through 2000 style signature, which I think is just incredible. But we're looking at these two amazing copies. Both of these are in mint 9 auto 10 condition. Clearly one's Beckett, one's SGC, but just incredible. And so these were cards that I definitely paid up for the condition premium, and I'm glad that I did, because again, these cards are just so, back when they had to actually ship these cards out to all the players, and they had to sign them, they had to package them back up, ship them back out, and they had to be packed out and then shipped back out again. And these cards just went through the ringer, and so to have any of them emerge in a mint 9 condition is just phenomenal. So I am just so happy. I'm so pleased to be able to acquire these, add these to my collection. My small but meaningful Barry Bonds PC does continue to grow a little bit. I don't think it'll be growing all that much more, but still, I'm just so happy to get these, to acquire these, and these are not going to be moving anytime in the near future or even in the distant future. These are keeper long-term PC cards. And so this is where a really big chunk of my resources went, right towards this. And then there was something else that was unexpected. Now this card was off my radar because I kind of discounted it at that time. I made the goals video thinking, well, there'd be no way that would be even conceivable. There's no way that would be possible. And it was funny because that's kind of what I thought about when I made a trade deal. I made a video a few weeks ago about this trade for this beautiful 96 Select Certified Mirror Red with a print run of 90, which, hey, for 96 was really, really limited. But then, as it turns out, there was an auction that came available for a Mirror Blue. And the Mirror Blue is actually an auction put on by PSA, of all sellers. And the opening bid was $700, and I'm imagining, okay, well, this thing is going to go for like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, whatever. That's going to be too much for me. Well, imagine my shock when it finishes at $700 and no one bid. And I couldn't believe it. And so it was relisted again, starting at like $400. And I was like, whoa. And the PSA, it was in a PSA assigned 9, this Mirror Blue. And I just thought, okay, well, there's kind of an upper ceiling. No one snapped at it, even for 7, which I thought was kind of crazy. And so I threw a bid in there, and now we have the partner to the mirror red. We've got this beautiful mirror blue and a PSA assigned at 9. And let me tell you, for both of these cards, it is just, wow. These are incredible. And I have zero misgivings about any of these condition-wise. This red is actually in a PSA assigned 8, although if I didn't tell you that, you would not know. Because, yeah, modern 8s are just incredible. Some really good value there. Yeah, these cards are just gorgeous, just phenomenal. So, I'm just so excited and just over the moon to be able to add. Like, again, both of these are cards where I'm like pinching myself, like, no way. There's no way I have this in my collection. But I do. Now, there's the mirror gold. You know, that's the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. So yeah, that one's going to be just no. We're going to forget about that one. That falls into the category of the PMG. We're not going to worry about that right now. But I'm just ecstatic. I'm over the moon. I can't believe that I'm adding, you know, cards of this caliber, you know, to my PC. My collection now has this kind of stuff in there. What's also fascinating is that, you know, a lot of people don't realize this Select Certified set from 96, these cards have a peel on them, but you can't see it. They don't advertise it. They don't tell you it's there, but it's there. And I have heard, you know, I made a video the other week about top shiny cards countdown, and someone in the comments said, you know, I noticed you didn't include the 96 Select Certified mirrors. And I responded back something to the effect of, oh, they're beautiful cards, you know, great shine, great shimmer, but they're just not quite as shiny, you know, as their 97 counterparts, which I put it in its first place because, I mean, if you look at those things in the hand, man, they you know, they'll shine your eyeballs out of your head. I mean, those things are amazing. They'll just slap you over the head with it. But then the person responded back saying, yeah, but if you peel these, they become shinier, which, I mean, that holds true with everything I've known about peels and refractors, and if you peel the 95s or the, you know, 98s or any of the finest refractors with peel, they do get shinier after you peel them. But that also leads to many other things, like the peels were on there so well that you often can't tell if a card has been peeled or not. I suspect if you look really, really closely at this, if it's ever gonna focus, there we go. Okay, if you look really, really closely. Like really, really closely, you'll see, oh gosh, if I can get the light on there, you see like just a hint of bubbling there. I think that hint of bubbling, there's little, you see, so there's little air bubbles or little dots. I think that's under the air bubbles under the film. So I think this card does have its peel still intact. But this, you know, peeling a 96 like certified has to be one of the most nerve-wracking experiences. These are peels that are stubborn. Some of them come off very easily in like 97 Pinnacle certified. These ones do not. These are awful. These are one of the worst I've had with 97 finest are just the terrible peels. They're hard to do. They take a long time. And apparently these are just hard to get started. And I've heard the horror stories of people just like completely ruining their mirrors by peeling off the entire top layer of the refractor coating. Like the surface of the card itself is just ruined. So that's just horrifying. And so I definitely don't want that. So we're gonna keep these in their homes for now. But yeah, let's go ahead and line these up here as we are finishing up here today. And so thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.